You should be getting a promote to panelist process. Okay. Oh, 8 now. I just need to find the. I need to find the remote. No. I must be in a military time.
Been too organized, Tyler. You're putting this all on video before we even get it.
I try to get taken care of.
You know how quickly we
Just as long as the audio is not on, we don't want hot mic moments.
You know, you're getting so efficient that we'll forget how to do this on our own. So if you're ever not here, we won't be able to get on.
I've got a train. So, but I've been a clerk for like 12 years. So sick because of me. It's out because it's been lucky.
So since this is the last Zoom,
Yeah.
and we're going to YouTube only, all right?
Yeah.
So will there be instructions on like they have one for Zoom meetings? We just go how do you
How do you
get
get to it? I think that's what I was going to just talk to the mayor about. If they go out there on the radio station, how do we talk about it on the radio? So they got something on the agenda. Does anybody ever do that?
I don't know. I just wonder for those that have wanted to participate by Zoom.
Yeah.
Because they haven't raised their hand, so they're listening. And now we're changing venues. It might be, if they're not familiar with YouTube, because of the company, the city's been doing that as well. So it might be good to let them know how to still follow along.
Link somewhere anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
There's
Mark Brothers. Good, yourself?
All right. Good so far. I say I work when I get there too. Good so far.
Yeah, yeah.
Always good to have a little caveat.
I don't know how to read this, so I'm certainly not mine.
In the wrong folder.
Is that council member Schaller?
Joe?
Did he sit next to you, council member Schaller?
Well, I never sat mine.
Oh, okay. I think that might have been his.
Yeah, I would have, except Mark took his seat.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Hey guys, how are you doing? Good.
Gentlemen, hello.
I wanted to share with you, I'll do it before I. You asked me about the Hasbro issue.
Oh, yeah.
And you said there was some survey work
Yeah.
needed to be done. Well, he told me there's two issues here, and so we're not conflating.
Okay.
Because the survey work for the easements, that's been done. But he has a question to planning with regards to whether or not he wants to consider subdividing his lot. or something
Okay.
With it, and that would take survey. He said, I may or may not go ahead with that, so hopefully we're not waiting
To do his
that.
survey?
Well, we're getting the easements for the road and all that squared away, because that needs to be done before he can do any of that anyway. Because they can't do measurements until we decided what the easements are.
Okay.
So anyway, he said, just make sure that we're not trying to do those in tandem, because if I don't do the other, we're wasting time for nothing.
That's true.
Because the other survey work's been done, he said. He thought. So, anyway, just
Okay.
wanted to share that.
That's good information. Okay. We don't want to do double work. Is he gonna do that or not?
I don't know. He hasn't really decided. He said it's going to pursue that.
Okay,
Hasn't done that project, any of that work in place until
sure,
decided.
okay.
It's just push to get all of that road stuff. Get all those signatures.
All the
Get a
plat,
copy
yeah.
of all that,
Yeah.
and then decide what-
Okay,
So I'll make sure that we're not just waiting on his, that survey.
If I started another ball inadvertently, that's affecting what we're doing on the first.
okay. Don't move forward. Okay, okay. Good to know. James. Good. Glenn? It's not as windy today.
What a reprieve. Oh, geez.
I don't think I've ever remember it being like this. Yeah.
Well, I mean, 20 when it's been up in the 30s, so it feels like relief. And when I walked my dog, it was only like 12. That was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It was.
North Bend where it's stuff on the road and the dust blows already. It's completely black out.
Out here on the bypass too. Out there, we're doing crossfires and stuff. They pick up all the soil. Oh, okay. Oh, maybe in Ohio.
Hi.
Yeah. Emails from here.
Just wonderful yourself.
Not bad. Just waiting for some nice weather. I mean, like, without the wind. How are you?
Good, Sally. Good.
I feel like you should be really there.
I'm too early.
You're perfect. You are. Yeah.
Oh, maybe, Sally, maybe you need to go and come back.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
We're
Just
all-
giving you some staff. You're always young.
I'm always here anyway.
Yep.
And sometimes my computers just stop. The other day, and I mean, he was watching, they just disappear.
Froze or what?
No,
Hi,
it
Vern.
just disappears. That's why I bring it back up too.
Oh, you mean the city one?
Yeah, but then mine froze. Mine disappeared too. It just like, I don't know how to say it. It was a mystery. It didn't freeze. It just disappeared.
You got the magic touch.
Yeah, yeah, okay, so
Not in a good way.
no. And I told him I booked a librarian,
Yeah.
right, their IT person, because I actually have a computer now. And it worked fine the other day when I went there. He set it all up for me with me and everything,
Mhm.
and it worked. The minute I got it home, didn't work.
Really?
So I rebooked him for yesterday again and said, doesn't even list
Maybe you need a house call.
aloe.
Yeah.
Well, he did some other things and then said, try this. So I got it up, but I've had this computer for several weeks.
Huh.
Haven't used it. I used it last night for my emails and stuff, so it worked. And I had a 17-inch
You can actually read the stuff for James.
Yes, I can see.
You don't have to squint. Some of our
And-
exhibits
and
are
I
a little
bought 'em.
small.
I did buy one that had a DVD player and a CD player. It's the only one available with that on it. They don't make them with
Yeah,
CDs and
that's kind of
DVDs
awkward.
anymore.
You put that stuff in there.
So it's not the biggest, fastest, but for what I need it for, it's just,
You're not playing a lot of games anyway, so you don't need the biggest.
no. No, not for games, except for kid games on
I
the.
had some computer work done the other day. This guy that I take it to, oh, this is a gaming machine.
Okay,
I said, believe me, I don't play games. I just like to buy a good quality
Oh.
stuff that has a lot of memory and a lot of RAM, so that
Yeah.
it works fast. But it's not because I never played a game like this. It's not my life.
That's been my experience too, is you get a little better product up front and then it
Well,
lasts a
a little bit
little
more
longer.
reliable, I think, in the end. Sort of like you get what you pay for.
Mhm. Yeah.
But it is, like Sal said, it is hard to find computers that have equipment. You know, DVD players,
Oh, yeah.
stuff like that,
True.
you just don't find it. Cost savings, I guess.
And this splits the screen. This one. No. This is the. And this is the-
Yep.
I'm good. I'll turn this on.
That looked like he was getting pretty comfortable in his phone office.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's fits well in there, so.
He said he still spends split time. He still has offices. Yeah, I still like it. I said, "That'll probably do it."
Yeah, I think you're right. He's so connected to that plant.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's what we're on. Does work out pretty good for him. And I was worried about that. Troy, though, because
Yeah.
they're right next door, so
Exactly.
issues.
Yep.
I've done through the wall.
Yeah, they work well together and they've known each other obviously for the last 14 years, but I think it's a good setup.
Thank you.
The other person of mine, $100 a year. Okay.
Okay, welcome everyone. The time is now 6:30. We'll open up open public comment. This is between 6:30 and 7 o'clock. Gives any member in the public an opportunity to speak on any item that's not on the agenda for up to 5 minutes. There's also comment cards over there next to IT over there. And if you are here, please come and sign in. Elaine Evans.
My name is Elaine Evans. I visited with you last month regarding the detention cell that was built and the built up easement to the west of Laverna Street. I asked you, please come and view what we residents of Central Park are dealing with. And I do want to thank Mayor Joey Spellerberg for doing just that. And I might add, he's probably the busiest person in this room. I moved back to my hometown of Fremont in 2016 from St. Paul, Nebraska. It's 25 miles north of Grand Island. We lived there for over 40 years. My late husband was on planning and zoning for many, many years, and I was on it for only 2. I resigned because I was moving to Fremont. While I realized that St. Paul is much smaller, each community has their own set of rules and regulations. Rules and regulations help communities grow aesthetically, and correctly, but we must also remember that it is the citizens who pay the property taxes. As an office holder, you're trying to protect the rights of said citizens, and you must be respectful of them. These government entities must also adhere to the rules and regulations, just as the citizens are required to do. About 6 weeks ago, Jennifer Dam and Dave Godikin visited with a group of us and heard our concerns. At that time, Jennifer stated that PVC pipe was going to be buried into the easement to promote drainage into the cell. I have a hard time understanding this. The easement has been built up approximately 18 to 24 inches above our backyards, and it slopes to the east into our backyards. How are they going to place the PVC pipe? Dig the existing area back up and install? Where is the methodology and logic? My sprinklers have been turned on. Will the soil slump over the sprinkler heads when and if we get rain? Mike Bennett stood in my backyard and noticed that my backyard is the low point when looking both north and south. This will be interesting. And I have taken many pictures of my basement for proof that my basement has never had water. Have any of you heard the term NIMBY? The government is really good with acronyms, and I worked for them. It stands for Not in My Backyard. I don't think any of you would be happy with this dilemma in your backyard. And one last note, a couple of years ago when our property taxes went soaring, I called the courthouse. The gal I talked to said our tax rate is the same as Brooks Hollow. I wonder what they would think if this boondoggle was in their backyard. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street here in Fremont, Nebraska. I'm not here to complain or to tear you apart about anything other than to ask you to take a look at what you're going to do with the ARPA funding. It is something that you have actually received $2.2 million, of which over $2 million is wrapped up in CDs right now. And the American Rescue Plan Act had intended this to go towards pay for these essential workers, improvements in infrastructure, water, sewer, broadband, those types of things to replace lost revenue due to the downturn in COVID and any money's coming in, but to reinvest in yourselves also. So there's some critical things that you as councilmen and woman, sorry, there's one of you, can be involved in helping make this decision. Dodge County is going to be receiving, their entire portion will be just over 11 million. You will shortly, between May and June, be receiving another $2.2 million. You have some very hard decisions to make. Please allow the public to enter into that discussion in your businesses for what's critical, not only just for businesses, but also for the residential. What is going to best benefit the city of Fremont now and in the near future on use of those ARPA funds? There are no strings attached. It's not a grant. You don't have to pay it back. But this is something you should be thinking about now. It's not intended to be a savings account for a rainy day. It's not intended to be a long-term investment. In fact, it's not supposed to be at all. You can provide premium pay for essential workers. You could address it towards something like PPEs, protective equipment for your first responders, whether it's fire, EMS, police, clinical workers, whoever is on the ground helping with the COVID relief, public health. I don't know how it would go to addressing more personnel as far as police or fire, but it's intended to be discussed. These funds aren't just going to be the decision of one or two individuals. This is something the 8 of you with the mayor and guidance of our financial director and a few others and the directors of the entities within the umbrella of Fremont will have decision in making. There was $111 million plus received by the state of Nebraska to be distributed. We have been fortunate in Dodge County to have received together with the county and Fremont over $15 million. That's a huge chunk of good that could occur. We talked about horizontal well drilling. Is that something that we could use? It's accessing potable water. My ask is only that you have that discussion and that you have an open discussion, not just with contractors, but businesses and small businesses who were also intended to be part of recipient on the ARPA funding. You lost a lot of small businesses that couldn't open or that were horrifically challenged during the height of COVID, and we're still not out of the woods on it. But they also should be considered on receiving some kind of a grant or assistance from the city. If it cost them their business and they were viable or getting boots on the ground. But again, that's a discussion that you need to have. And I haven't heard that broached yet. And you received these funds last year in the fall. And they're sitting there. And now you're about to have the last draw on that half. Another $2.2 million will hit the coffers prior to the end of June. My question is, what are you going to do with the funding? And how are you going to make that decision? Thank you.
ahead.
Ray Tuff, 1825 North Keene, Fremont, Nebraska. I'm here tonight just basically to ask of you, Mayor, because in our contract with Adams and Sullivan, it states that from time to time that you're able to review their services. And so I'm requesting you to do that just because of April 6th, I did a public records request, and it was specifically on the Dodge County Humane Society case. And I said, please send a copy of billable hours to the city of Fremont by Adams and Sullivan Law Firm in regards to the Dodge County Humane Society. I only request the hours spent outside of city council meetings. Please also include the travel time that has been included. Well, so just on after I got my response from them and they redacted half of it, we have been billed $94,647.50 by Adams and Sullivan just on the Dodge County Humane Society case, which we're losing anyways. So it seems to me that it was just a ploy between the attorneys of Dodge County Humane Society and ours for the attorneys to win in that situation. So in their scope that, they're supposed to be providing for of services that they're providing for the city. I mean, most of the stuff Councilman Yurter does for us. I went back and watched at least 6 meetings, and there wasn't one time that our legal team did not catch it. However, Mr. Yurter did. So, I mean, in the next election, we all better pray he gets reelected because he's doing most of the work. So I just would like you to take a look at what our contract is. My understanding is last year in between $400,000 and $500,000 paid to a law firm because they're privately hired. When we had one on staff with the paralegal, that was less than 200,000. A little bit of fiscal irresponsibility again. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you.
Name and address.
Name and address. All right. Scott Givens, audio video specialist. I'm basically here because of what I've been working on with the downtown business district on the speaker system, all Main Street. And just wanted to.
That's on the agenda tonight. So
I'm just here to say thank you. And if there's anything I can do or answer any questions, I'll be here.
For those just entering, we have 10 minutes left in open public comment. So allows any member of the public to speak on any item that's not on the agenda for up to 5 minutes. If you are here and like to speak, please, there's a sign-in sheet right here, or there's also comment cards in the back. And this will be until 7 o'clock.
Thank you.
I shouldn't get it back a couple of times. Because I don't have much pages. Yeah. Is there someone who wants to buy that? So, yep. I guess I'll get money out of it. Yeah. Well, they're they do. Yes. Yeah. I looked it up. Uh-oh. Then you can have mine. So. Darn system. Yeah. Just to see how big the difference makes. It might be. Jigsaw. Actually, was all yeah, it all starts with the same like way. That's a good thing. It looks like that.
Okay, the time is 7 o'clock. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will call the regular city council meeting to order. Time is 7 o'clock. The Opens Meeting Act is posted on the rear wall next to the agendas. So at this time, we'll have roll call.
Please vote for roll call. Eight council members are present, Mayor.
Thank you. Next is mayor's comments. Just have a few quick items tonight. One thing I just wanted to announce to the public is that this will be our last meeting for the Zoom option to be available to the public. Obviously, you can come into the chambers as well as our YouTube. We'll still be streaming live, but this will be the last meeting you'll be able to use Zoom. I want to really thank our IT department and the work that they did over COVID-19, Jeremy and Warren and Nick Brand, our former IT director, to really do a great job in regards to conducting a meeting and going through that. I don't think we ever had to miss a meeting or reschedule them going through that whole time. So really thank our IT department for their hard work going through COVID. Also tonight, I'd like to recognize there's one service award for April. I have Daniel Menard, 5 years of service. Dan was hired in 2017 as a line worker apprentice. In 2021, he was promoted to a line worker first class. So I want to thank Daniel for his dedicated 5 years of service to Fremont. And then lastly, last Friday, we had an event out at Johnson Lake. It was Earth Day to remember and recognize former Parks and Rec Director Kim Koski. I want to thank Fremont Beautiful for donating a bench to the park. It's in a really neat spot. So all those that will enjoy Johnson Lake will be able to sit there and remember Kim for her 25 years of dedicated service to Fremont. We lost Kim last January due to cancer. And so it was thank all those in the public and city staff, council members that were able to attend and honor Kim. And again, want to thank Keep Fremont Beautiful for their help in that event. Okay, I'll move on to item 1, motion to adopt the current agenda for the April 26, 2022 regular meeting. Councilman Yerger.
Yes, I would like to ask council to move items 20, 21, and 23 to be after item 26, all of which to be preceded by an executive session, whereby council could entertain some additional questions on these matters and get some advice and direction from legal.
Hey, Councilman Ellis.
I'd like to ask for 17, 18, and 19 to be moved after public hearing. I know we have a lot of people in the audience. So.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, are there any more requests? Okay, I would take, there'd be a second for items 20, 21, and 22 to be moved behind item 26 and include an executive session. Oh. Okay, Councilman Ellis.
I'll second that.
Okay, cast your votes.
Please cast your vote. Motion carries 5-3, Mayor.
Okay, then I'd take a second to the change to move 17, 18, and 19 just after public hearings. Councilman Legband.
I will second that.
Okay. Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, I'd take a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Councilman Gibson.
So moved.
Councilman Jensen.
Second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, moving on to public hearings. Item 2, resolution 2022-061, recommending approval of class IK liquor license application of Quintero Berta doing business as Renita Restaurant at 414 North Main Street in Fremont, Nebraska. We'll have staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This item was noticed in the newspaper for this public hearing on April 14th, 2022, as per state statute. This item is a little unique. Typically, we held these hearings for new liquor licenses. This is not a new liquor license, and that's the reason why there's not really a planning report or a police department report. There was one done recently because they were approved recently, but this is simply to add a catering endorsement to the license, and that would allow them to provide catering services at locations in the city of Fremont at a reduced cost. And so I would ask the city council to take action to approve this resolution. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Seeing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. If there's no additional comments from council, I take a motion in regards to this item. Councilwoman Ganem.
I move we accept resolution number 2022-061.
Councilman Legband.
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to item 3, ordinance 5612 to amend section 11-05.02 regarding flood prone and flood fringe regulations and definitions. There's also a request to suspend rules and move to final reading. We'll have staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. The allergies are cold. I don't know which. It's killing me. The City of Fremont updated the floodplain regulations last October at the request of Melissa Mitchell from the Community Rating System. She reviewed our ordinance and practices as part of the determination of giving us points to reduce flood insurance. If you reach a certain number of points, you get discounts on flood insurance. So we added the language that she wanted after working with her and Chuck Chase from the state floodplain office. So I was kind of surprised in March when I got an email from Elijah from the state that said that he and FEMA had reviewed the changes to our ordinance and they wanted additional changes. So I went back and forth with him. And what is in front of you tonight are the changes that are requested by the state. Initially, the changes that Melissa had requested were really semantic and basically asked that we add the language about 1 foot of freeboard, which was kind of awkward language, but it was what she wanted. We wanted the discount, so we added that. The state didn't like that language, so they worked with her and FEMA, and they're removing most of that language now and going back to 1 foot above the base flood elevation. Other changes are mostly semantic. They capitalized city, they removed FW and FF from the overlay districts. They wanted to make sure that there was a specific position designated as a floodplain administrator. So it states that the chief building official or their designee, instead of listing a whole slew of different positions that could be. We added mobile to manufactured homes. They initially had wanted to remove mobile homes, but in our regulations, both in the zoning and building, there's a distinction between mobile and manufactured homes. A mobile home has a chassis on it. A manufactured home does not. A mobile home can only be located in certain areas in a mobile home park. A manufactured home can be located anywhere. We wanted to make sure that both were covered clearly by the floodplain regulations. Additional things that they added were in the overlay districts that they would apply for a letter of map revision as soon as practical after construction is complete for encroachments in a waterway floodway district. They've added language in the floodway overlay districts and the floodplain overlay districts that once a structure is substantially damaged or improved, it's considered to be a new structure. That's for purposes of to prevent continual incremental expansion of some of those structures. And then again, just some semantics. Probably the other significant thing would be under pertinent structures, which would be an accessory structure like a garage or an outbuilding. Previously, we had restricted that to 400 square feet in area. Chuck Chase from the state recommended last October that we increase that to 900 square feet, so we did. And then the state in their model code has reduced that again to 800 square feet. So that's why that changes there. And then again, at the end, it just talks about semantic changes about the 1 foot of freeboard or 1 foot above the base elevation. These are required to be, changes are required to be made in April in order for us to get a discount under the CRS program for flood insurance this year. So I would ask that you waive the readings and proceed with this tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, council? Thank you. I'll now open the public hearing. Any comments from the public? Okay. Now close the public hearing.
Excuse me.
Oh, go
You
ahead.
didn't see me
My
jump
fault.
up.
Thank you.
It's so crowded in here, I can see that. It's 1805 Northeast Street, Susan Jacobus here in Fremont. I would just ask, this is kind of a last minute change that you could have entertained a lot of this verbiage prior and had a few of the red lines, but I was going to ask, where's the red line on this? I know that there should have been red line and it wasn't given online. So I'm just asking, do you as councilman have a red lined copy? because it was hard to follow and go back to the original UDC language and then compare back and forth because no red line was provided. And I was just asking that in the future, that since your code, I believe, unless you've changed it, requires a red line to be offered on ordinance changes, that it be done. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, I'll now close the public hearing. Any additional comments from council? Councilman Yerger.
I'd like to comment on the comment that was just made because I did have discussion with the planning director before this meeting, and obviously council members should be aware that a red line version was sent to council members as a result of the discussion with the planning director. But I too would agree that, and I think planning director agreed with me when we talked, that the red line should be in tonight's public record. And I don't know if we have copies that, or at least one copy that we could entertain putting in the public record so that in fact we have this memorialized. I realize the changes may be as you describe them, not as particularly serious as, but nevertheless, we were unable in our original packet material to see that information. And the planning commission did get to see that information. So I think we should have as well. I would like for us to put something in the record tonight if you have it, that we could receive it into the
Yeah,
record.
there is a copy in the back. I can bring it up and receive it into record. The two documents that I put in the folders were the red line versions, the one to attach to the staff report and the one to attach to the ordinance. So I don't know how those, when the packet was uploaded, were not the red line versions. But I did put those in the packet, the same has been in the planning commission packet.
Okay, and this isn't serious, but as a matter of just correction, you'll note too that the ordinance as described on the agenda tonight has a miss or a typo with regards to this is not section 11-405.02. It is section 11-405.02. So that's what we're amending. That's what the resolutions clearly say. And certainly if we put the red line record in, and if you'd like to offer it, I'd like to make a recommendation that we receive that for the public record.
Yeah, sure, I can go grab it.
Tyler, did you have?
Yeah, the agenda software that I use when I upload it, sometimes for some reason, I don't understand why it removes the red line from some of those documents. And so I'll work on being more diligent on that red line documents in the future.
And make a motion to receive. She's offering.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll second that.
Okay. Cast your votes to receive.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Any other comments from council? There's no other comments. I would take a motion to introduce and hold first reading. Councilwoman Ganem.
So moved.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We'll now have first reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending Exhibit B of Ordinance 5427, specifically portions of the UDC Chapter 11 zoning subdivision and site development Exhibit B, providing for repeal of ordinances conflict herewith, providing for subdivision and providing an effective date on first reading.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to the request to suspend the rules and move this to third and final reading.
Councilman Legband. Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We'll now have final, no, we have a final reading now. Yeah, no, we don't. Yeah, we do. Final reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending Exhibit B of Ordinance 5427, specifically portions of the UDC Chapter 11 zoning subdivision and site development Exhibit B, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability and providing an effective date on final reading.
Okay, cast your vote.
The ordinance is approved 8-0, Mayor.
All right, now moving on to 17. Move to confirm appointment of 2 fire lieutenants per mayor recommendation. So it is my honor tonight to present Blake Wagner and Richard Shutt as fire lieutenants to the Fremont Fire Department. These appointments go through the civil service, and then I review them and then make my appointments. And I would ask for city council to approve Blake Wagner and Richard Shutt as our new fire lieutenants within the Fremont Fire Department. Councilman Gibson.
I would so move.
Councilman Legband.
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Blake and Richard, if you're here, please stand so we can recognize you and your accomplishment tonight. Congratulations. All right, moving on to item 18 is move to confirm appointment of firefighter EMT per mayor recommendation. Again, it is my honor tonight to confirm appointment of Neil Hansen to the Fremont Fire Department as well. For this appointment, it goes through civil service. And again, I want to thank the civil service for their work. And again, it's my honor to recognize Neil tonight and move to appoint him. And I would take a motion in that regard. Councilman Legband.
I move to confirm the appointment.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Cast your vote.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Mr. Hanson, are you here today? All right. Congratulations. Welcome to the Fremont Fire Department. Glad to have you. Thank you. And item 19, move to confirm appointment of police officer per mayor recommendation. Again, it is my honor tonight to appoint and recommend Kelly Brown as our new police officer for the Fremont Police Department. And it would take a motion in that regard. Councilman Legband.
Move to confirm appointment.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Very good. Kelly, if you're here, please stand and be recognized. That was a lot of fun. I'd do that every council meeting. Congratulations to all, to Blake Wagner, Richard Shutt, now our fire lieutenants, Neil Hansen and Kelly Brown. Again, congratulations for your accomplishment tonight. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. All items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Any items to be removed from the consent agenda by council, staff, or the public? Councilman Yurger.
Unless staff is removing this on its own accord, I would ask to remove item 8 for discussion.
Okay. Are there any other items? Seeing no other items, I take a motion to approve consent agenda items 4 through 7, 9 through 12. Councilman Jensen.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda items listed.
Councilman Legban.
I'll pick that.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to item 8, resolution 2022-063, authorizing execution of a professional services contract between the Eastern Nebraska Office of Aging and the Fremont Friendship Center. Now we'll have a staff report from our Parks and Rec Director, Nick Hansen.
Nick Hansen, Parks and Rec Director. This is the E&O renewal contract per year. We're just basically approving a amended resolution where we added whereas under the 2-year 2022 to 2023 renewal agreement, E&OA will reimburse the city $24,414 for its salary and janitorial cost. This is an annual renewal that we do with the state with E&OA. It provides us food during the day. If you're 60 and over, you can go out there for a $4 meal. Great. It's a great senior center, friendship center. And we're just amending the resolution that we had to add that extra spot in there. Any questions?
Councilman Yurger.
Are you offering that amended language for the record to be received?
Yes.
Does the clerk have that amended language?
I have a copy of it. I didn't print that off, but I do have.
Okay. Does the rest of council need to understand what the additional language says specifically?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the current resolution that right now we're looking at, you're adding a whereas statement.
Yes. And whereas is basically adding what the reimbursement to the city will be and the contract of being a 2022 to 2023.
Okay. We can get to that amendment after we go through public comment and everything else we need to do. Okay, is there any other questions in regards to this item for our Parks and Rec Director? Thank you. Comments from the public? Any additional comments from council? Councilwoman Ganem?
No, just to reiterate that that's a fantastic opportunity for our community members to use. And if you haven't had a chance to visit, whether you're 60 older or not, you might just want to stop by and take a look at it. So we're lucky to have this service.
Councilman Vaughn?
Question for legal, do you concur with the changes that are proposed?
I don't mind either way, council preference. It's in the contract.
Okay. Any other comments from council? Councilman Yurger?
Since we're not offering a formal document for receipt, I guess I'd like to at least read the whereas statement into the record so the council knows the wording that's being voted on with regards to the amended resolution is offered by staff.
Okay.
So the language that's being added says different than what was in the packet. Says whereas under the 2-year 2022-23 renewal agreement, ENONA will reimburse the city $24,414 for its salary and janitorial costs.
Okay. Is there a second to amend the resolution? Councilman Ellis?
I second that.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, take a motion in regards to the resolution as amended. Councilman Gibson,
I want that motion.
Councilman Legman. Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, moving on to unfinished business. Ordinance 5610, change of zone from GC General Commercial to LI Light Industrial on property generally located at the northwest corner of West Military Avenue and Business Park Drive. This would be for second reading.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is the second reading on a request to change the zoning of this property from GC General Commercial to Light Industrial. It's associated with comp plan amendment and a preliminary plat that you voted to approve at your last meeting. This was voted to be approved by the Planning Commission unanimously. Staff recommends approval, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Gibson, you're on. Do you have a question? Okay. Any questions for staff? Councilman Jensen?
I'll just ask, is there any reason not to suspend the rules and move this third and final and take it off and be done with it?
That would be fantastic. I'm sure the applicant would appreciate that as well.
Councilman Yerger?
And quite honestly, I suspect we don't really have any choice. My firm belief is personally, for my review of this, I'd rather have seen this remain commercial zoning. But the council did vote at the last meeting to change the land use map to light industrial, which basically says we can't do anything but zone it light industrial at this stage anyway, because unless we want to go back and revisit what was already done. So it seems to me this is a foregone conclusion that zoning is going to be light industrial, and waiving, as Councilman Jensen indicates, probably just speeds up the process because that's what it's going to be.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you. Any comments from the public? Seeing no comments, any additional comments from council? Councilman Yerger?
I do have one. I could have asked it of staff when I was on before, but this is out in the extraterritorial area of Fremont, outside the city limits. I don't recall during this agenda item discussion before on zoning or on the items that we approved in the previous meeting, whether or not there was an anticipation that we would be annexing this. Is there a plan that we would annex this into the city?
Yes, I would anticipate that the annexation request would come along with the final plat.
Thank you.
There's no other comments. I would take a motion regards to ordinance 5610 and hold second reading. Councilman Legband.
I would like to hold second reading of ordinance 5610.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Councilman Jensen. Oh, we'll have second reading. Off my game tonight, Tyler.
Did I make instructions? Okay. An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending ordinance number 5427 as it pertains to the zoning map to rezone the property generally located at the northwest corner of Military RD and Business Park from GC General Commercial to LI Light Industrial, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing effective date on second reading.
Thank you. Councilman Jensen.
Now make the motion to suspend the rules and hold third and final reading.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Okay. Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Now have final reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending ordinance number 5427 as it pertains to the zoning map to rezone the property generally located at the northwest corner of Military RD and Business Park Drive from GC General Commercial to LI Light Industrial, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing effective date on final reading.
Okay, cast your final vote, ordinance 5610.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, moving on to item 14, Councilmember Ellis, item ordinance 5611, amending chapter 10, article 2 of the Fremont Municipal Code to include the regulation of street vendors. This would be for second reading. Councilman Ellis.
This ordinance was placed for the council consideration last time. I've met with several vendors over the last couple of months, and because of the current resolution that was adopted back in 2011, we decided that there needed to be some changes made to our food truck policy here in the city. And so we went through and came up with a lot of good proposals. We submitted the proposals last week, as voted on, or last meeting it was voted on. Since then, there's been some more talk, and I just wanted to bring up a couple of items for discussion, or some recommendations maybe. I have to thank the clerk for helping me with a lot of this. He's the guy that's on the street dealing with these guys every day, and so he kind of gave me some insight. The ordinance change states that 2:30 in the morning is the latest time that food trucks could sell. He's recommending we move that back to 1 o'clock in the morning to consist with the time that most shops shut down, whatever. So I thought that was a good change. Another change that I'd like to amend maybe is currently the ordinance has the licenses expire in December 31st. But this really is a seasonal kind of thing. And so we actually thought that if they expired March 31st and they would have to get your application in by April 1st or April 1st after, that would just coincide with the season a little bit better. And I like that change as well. December 31st, nobody's thinking about food trucks. So I thought that was a good thing. We talked about the application a little bit. He's simplifying it, taking a lot of it out. We've learned our lesson from the cement application. So we're not asking any questions there that don't apply or that we should not be looking at. So the one checkbox that we did want to add to the application was the applicant has the ability to get a license for just the city or the city and the BID of the downtown business. And so if they want to vend in the BID or the downtown, it'll cost them an extra $100 as opposed to the additional $100. So I believe, is that number correct? I think that's, yeah. Okay.
I think one change that I was recommending is we're going to be, I think, considering fee schedule, the master fee schedule, maybe at our next meeting, to kind of remove the actual dollar amounts from the ordinance so that it's reflected in the fee schedule.
Yeah.
So at that point, would you have the additional amount for the BID just double? Is that the idea? Or?
Yeah, it would just go from 100 to 200 if they wanted to vend downtown.
Okay, thank you.
And let's see, there was one more other change I thought. The request or the question came back, does ice cream trucks that go down the streets? And I thought, yes, they're vending food, they should probably pay attention to this ordinance, or at least have this license in their possession. And then non-food vendors does not apply. So if you're selling Avon or whatever from streets, you can't do that. This doesn't apply. That would go back to something else. So there's a couple of amendments here that I think I'd like to propose. They're all, I think, good. We're putting the last tweaks here to make this happen. But I think all of these are good amendments and kind of open for discussion. So I'll open, release the table.
Yeah, Councilman Lakeman.
My first question, are you wanting to keep all 8 pages otherwise? Okay, and the vendors were okay with all of it?
Go ahead.
The vendors actually liked the rules in place because that gives them something to go by. And so I think we've got a couple here that when we go to public comment, but it's better to know what the rules are than to not know and let the clerk kind of shoot from the hip sometimes. And so, yeah, we've had several vendors look at the rules. These kind of rules apply to same cities And so I think 9 pages is, long, but it's, I think they like the definition.
My next question, were the vendors okay with paying an extra $100 to be able to set up downtown?
We followed the model of a lot of cities. And so the downtown is going to be the prime. And so there's just going to be more activity down there. And so I think, if nothing else, it's something that they weren't against. Like I said, we ran this proposal by several vendors beforehand, and they all kind of gave us a thumbs up. So
Last question, then I'll be done, hopefully. Is BID okay with this then too, since we brought them up now?
we're simply just using the BID or the downtown as a district that's been defined. So it really doesn't apply to the BID except for we're using their boundaries. It still comes back to the city. No.
Okay.
The one question that I think we need some negotiating, or at least some advice from the lawyers, is how do we transition from what we have to get to this new ordinance? We have several vendors out there that have already paid their $40, and so that $40 gets them a license in one location for the rest of the year. Now, if they want to change locations, they have to come before the clerk, get the address changed, and then so there's a little bit of how do we transition the licenses that are out there to these new licenses?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what we would do is add a line in probably at the end or in the effect language that says this affects all licenses applied for after the effective date of the ordinance. So anyone who had an ordinance that's been previously established keeps it until that expires, and then they'd have to come into compliance with this new ordinance.
Okay. Councilman Yerger.
Along that line of thinking and response to maybe we would put something in code that does that, I guess when we get to the public comment, maybe those that are here that are street vendors would want to weigh in on this, but it would seem like an approach might be for transition that those that have already paid $40 for a location specific fee might be far better off if they're mobile to be able to say, take my $40 and apply it towards your $100 fee and apply it towards the $200 fee and let me for a year go anywhere just like everybody else under this new code. Otherwise, they have to operate under the old code while everybody else is operating under the new code. And if we just give them grace for what they've already paid with the advent of you don't have to come back every time you move around the city, which is a real benefit of this code, that you can go anywhere. I think that might be appealing to them. So I would suggest that when we think about how do we transition, it isn't just a going forward. I think we ought to think about giving them credit for what they've already paid and moving them into the new code if they're willing. If they're not, that's fine. But if they are, that would be a way of giving them credit for what they've already paid. The other question I would have for Councilman Ellis, certainly these adjustments to what's here before us tonight seem to make some sense to me from what I've heard. Are you offering these in writing to be adopted as a part of the amended second reading? Will that be forthcoming? Or we had oral discussion on them, they'll be incorporated at next reading. I wasn't sure exactly which sections these went in. I found at least one of them, but I'm wondering which specific sections these changes would go in.
Turn off.
Sorry.
Yeah, I brought these ideas tonight to discuss. So if there's no back and forth, if we need to modify, then I would bring them back next week as a final recommendation.
Could I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Councilmember Ellis, I wanted to check in with you if you had planned to make changes to section 10-216, because the last sentence in that section says the additional fees paid under this section shall be forwarded by the city over to the said Business Improvement District to offset expenses incurred by the district for cleaning, security, sanitation, and other mobile food vendor associated maintenance expenses.
I forgot all about that. Yes, so I stand corrected.
Okay, so that would be the
That
plan.
would be in the
Okay.
ordinance, yeah.
Okay. And then were you leaving in the last two sections, 10-222 on special districts and the section 10-223 periodic review?
I didn't see any reason to remove that. That just gives the council flexibility in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, any comments from the public?
Staff, public. I sent a bunch of kind of comments and questions to Tyler earlier that I think he forwarded on to you, just a few consistency things that I would love to sit down with you before the final reading and we can iron some of those things out. Nothing too serious, I don't think. One area though is I think we want to include maybe a temporary use as we update our zoning districts, because currently this only applies to the city limits. If we have it in the zoning, then it'll apply to the ETJ. So if RTG wants to have a food truck or somebody out in the ETJ, Shulkey Fields or something like that, there would be that ability to do so. So just a couple things to think about.
Any other comments from the public?
Seth Coates, 1215 County Road X, Fremont, Nebraska. Just a couple brief comments. I did a little bit of research on after we looked at that the ordinance and the changes and kind of questioned enforcement, compliance, and complaints and how that may be handled in other areas. And La Vista, Nebraska has a ordinance almost exactly mirrors what the ordinance before you is. And so I actually talked to La Vista, Patty Anderson, she's the deputy city clerk down there, to ask her kind of what their experience has been. Their population of La Vista is about 18,000, but of course they're bordered by 500,000. And so I thought probably if they were going to have problems, if anybody had problems, it would be them. And so I asked Patty about how that's been working. Again, their ordinance is almost word for word identical to what we're looking at. And she said they have had zero problems, that the ordinance has kind of spelled out everything for the vendors and that it's been very clear. They haven't had compliance issues. They haven't had complaint issues. They just haven't experienced issues at all down there in La Vista with the ordinance that they have in place. And so I was a little encouraged by that, because I think that when you look at an ordinance like this and you look at all of the points, there's a lot of things to follow. And one of the things as a vendor you get concerned about is complaints. I don't want to deal with complaints all the time from people. Do you have your name badge, or you're parked, a certain distance from the corner? I mean, all those things, they get in my way, they get in your way, and it takes city time. We have to have a plan for enforcement. And so, like I said, when I talked to Patty, she was very encouraging, just to say that they just have not experienced those issues down there in La Vista whatsoever. And so her words were, there's nothing further from the truth as far as them having problems. And so I just want to encourage the city that while I think it's good to be cautious, I think that other communities have this exact same ordinance in place and has worked very well for them, for the vendors and for the city. So like I said, I just wanted to speak and let you know that we're in support of that ordinance. So thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, any additional comments from council? Okay, Councilman Jensen.
If there are no additional comments, I'll make the motion to second reading.
Councilman Legband.
No, second that.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Now have second reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending chapter 10, article 2 of the Fremont Municipal Code, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, providing when the fees are effective and providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect on second reading.
Okay, moving on to item 15, resolution 2022-050, authorizing amendment to interlocal to extend agreement 5 years with the village of Cedar Bluffs for satellite Kino operations.
Mayor and council, this item and the next, it was continued from the last meeting. I'm going to ask that you continue these items again to not really the next meeting, but just to continue them to allow us time to review the underlying interlocal agreements for these. And then Travis is going to be working on that. So I just request you continue these items and then we'll bring them back when we're in a good place.
Councilman Legman.
So do you need the motion to continue these two?
Yes, please.
Can we do both at the same time or do we have to do one at a
We'll
time?
probably have to do one at a time at this point.
Okay. I would make a motion to continue resolution 2022-050.
Councilman Gibson.
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to continue item 16, resolution 2022-051.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to new business would be item 23. Resolution 2022-069, authorizing execution of a lease agreement between Julio Magna Fremont Adult Soccer League and the city of Fremont. Staff report.
Nick Hanson, Director Parks and Rec. Julio Magana approached the city of Fremont Parks and Rec here about a month ago, looking for a place to play adult soccer league. We contacted Fremont High to see if we could use those fields. We contacted Fremont Soccer Club to see if they wanted to use those fields. They came back to us and still asked to use Johnson Fields. We said, sure, as long as you can get us the insurance. Took us a good month to get everything squared away, but we found them a place. They can only use the east field on Johnson and then the west field north of the goalpost, because our west field is not irrigated yet. East field is. So we gave them a spot for 2 fields. The league would have about 12 teams from Fremont and surrounding areas. The lease would be for 1 year. The rate would be about $60 per field per Sunday use. They'd like to have their league run through April through July. We'll still maintain the fields. We'll winterize and de-winterize the facility. They will be obviously in charge of painting the lines. This kind of follows our other lease agreements. We can still open this up to another organization if they need the fields. Our city attorney has reviewed the lease. And for the fiscal impact, we'll probably bring in about $2,000 for the league and a place for them to play.
All right, any questions? Councilman Legman.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just want to thank you for your work you've done on this, because I know they're looking for fields to play on all the time. And so now we have a place for them and they're paying for the fields and we're taking care of it. And I just want to thank you again for your work on this. I think it's great.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Comments from the public? Okay, seeing no comments, there's no additional comments from council. I take a motion in regards to this item. Councilman Yerger.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2022-069.
Councilman Vaughn.
And I will second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
All right, item 24, resolution 2022-072 to award contract to audio visual specialists for a public address system in the district. Now have a report from the BID.
Sam Heineman, BID Projects Chair, here to give you an update and ask for your approval of the PA speaker system for downtown. You were all emailed a copy of the packet and information ahead of time. I'd like to go over just the one-page summary if we could real quick and answer any questions you have. I do want to highlight in the corner of it, it shows your coverage map in red. It's a 32 speaker system. In the future, the system can be expanded and we can add speakers to grow. The major benefit we see to this system is as a PA system, it'll enhance the events we host downtown. These include John C. Fremont Days, the Hispanic Festival, Christmas Walk, Artisan Markets, Halloween Hysteria, Summer Festival, Farmers Markets, car shows, parade, community events. It can also be used as an emergency broadcast system. So if we need to send out weather alerts or an Amber Alert, it could be used for that. It will play background music downtown, which will enhance the shopping experience. It'll play instrumental music only, as in no words. The logistics, the system will be set up in the Main Street / Fremont CVB office. The PA system has a mobile system that can be used by organizations downtown. A little bit of the process, we did send out for a formal request for proposal. Audio Video is the one who submitted the bid. They submitted the only bid. We had a company from Des Moines come out and they stated via email that they felt best with the local vendor would best service our needs. We mailed this letter out to all BID property members, hosted an open event on April 12th from 5:30 to 6:30 in the evening. We had limited participation, but the feedback was positive on the speaker system. The issue they want us to look into going forward is the parking challenges downtown. Lastly, I want to highlight the cost and the cost sharing. The BID as a board worked really hard to find additional funding sources because initially that was the thing, we want to create value for our BID members. You will notice the total cost is $73,855. Ultimately, the BID will be responsible for $28,855. This we passed at our BID meeting recommending to approve this with a 12-0 unanimous vote. The Convention Visitors Bureau will contribute $25,000 to the project. This was passed unanimously by the Convention Visitors Bureau, as well as then they sent it to the Dodge County Board of Supervisors for approval, which there it was passed unanimously again, contingent upon City Council approval this evening. We worked hard to raise $15,000 in private donations for the project, as well as last fall, the council approved the Kino funds for $5,000. The logistics, the BID will pay the cost up front. It will come out of the fund balance, and the BID will be reimbursed by the other members here that we noted. We did receive some feedback on the email that we sent out just for clarification purposes in the resolution. If we could add the funding sources in the whereas statement. The proposed amended resolution was sent to Tyler, and hopefully you guys can have it, or I have a copy here we could put in the record. But I would encourage you to approve it. We've had a lot of community input, we've got a lot of organizations to participate in it, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Councilman Yerger.
First of all, do we need to make a motion to receive the document as offered?
Yes.
If so, I make that motion first.
Okay.
I do have a question or two, but I'd like to make a motion to receive the document.
Is there a second? Councilman Jensen.
I'll second.
Okay. Cast your vote.
Councilmember Year, thank you.
Sorry.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead with your questions.
So I don't have a significant question really. I'm just curious with regards to the status of where we are all over, not just in Fremont, but everywhere. When, and maybe the the contract holder would have to answer this, I don't know. The way I see the pictures, these will be mounted on the city's light poles or whatever in the downtown area, so they'll be significantly off the ground. And other equipment will be on buildings or rooftops or whatever. That's basically the schematic, is that correct?
They're going to be on the light poles. I believe there's roughly 3 per block. We have Scott here with audio video. He can probably. tell you
My
the
question
logistics
is,
a
my
little
question
bit.
is one of security with regards to the installation to prevent against potential theft. Realizing that it'll take a ladder or something to get up to the where you're going to mount them on the poles. But will there be any other security apparatus in the way that they're mounted or whatever that would deter theft of the investment that the city is making in this regard?
Yes, the manufacturer uses a security head screw that you'd have to bring a full set of unique tools to get that off of there. Plus, like you said, it'll be, up in the air where you'd have to have 8-foot ladder to get to them.
And that's true for the apparatus that's mounted on the sides of buildings or on rooftops or whatever. as
That'll
well?
be
All
on top
those
of
are
the
equally
building.
secured?
Yep, that'll be on top of the building with a non-penetrating roof mounts. We're not drilling into anyone's roof. But in other communities that have done this, theft has not been an issue.
Okay, great. The other question maybe is for the BID. You said that this equipment's going to be located in Main Street. Will they also be coordinating and controlling access to the system and the content that's played and or what's used over the speaker system?
Correct. They would
They'll
be
in charge?
Yep, they would be, the main master system would be controlled in their office. Like I said, the recommendation to begin with would be playing music that does not have words, so we're not offending anyone. We would have a licensed streaming service subscription, so we follow all copyright laws. And you'd want to go to Main Street to check out the PA system if you're John C. Fremont Days and you want to use the PA system for the car show downtown.
Was there any consideration or discussion at the BID meeting with regards to the businesses using these as a form of advertisement if in fact they were choosing to pay for said advertisement? That is, we're running a big sale and therefore we'd like to have that announced during the course of the day over the loudspeaker system. Was any of that explored or no?
There was some discussion on it, but at this time, it's not something we're going to pursue. It could always be changed in the future, but we'd like to get the system up, get it working, host our events downtown.
So music broadcast and then primarily for special event announcements and
Yep.
those kind of things. Thanks.
All right, any comments from the public?
Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street, Fremont. I'd like to thank the BID for following this through. I think it'll be a great enhancement to the downtown district, and it's been needed. It will give it a kind of a fun flavor to downtown events. You mentioned car shows, but there's many other that I could see this being utilized. I think it's just an important asset, and I think it was also mentioned to follow through on parking and hopefully a green space downtown as well. And so this is a great step forward. So I appreciate what BID has done. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Any additional comments from council? Councilman Yerger?
If not, I'd make a motion to approve resolution 2022-072.
I think, did you want to amend it?
Oh, yes, for the document that we received for the record. Sorry, we do
Yep.
need to do
Let's
that.
amend it first.
Yeah, as amended and received into the record.
Okay, we need to vote on the amendments,
Okay.
right? Amend the resolution. So I need a second. Councilman Legband,
I'll second that.
okay? Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0 to amend, Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Legband,
I make a motion to approve the amended resolution 2022-072.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Also want to thank the BID. I think this will be a great addition to downtown. Appreciate the work to get a 12-0 vote, unanimous vote. Also go to the county and get some funds from the county. So very creative way. And thank you for coming together and making this happen for the downtown. All right, moving on to item 25, resolution 2022-073, approving the request of Main Street Fremont to hold the Fremont Hispanic Festival event to include the related street closures necessary for the parade, as well as use of John C. Fremont Park on September 10th, 2022.
Hello, Melissa Powell, Main Street Fremont. Just wanted to come in front of you about the Hispanic Festival. I don't know if any of you remember it from last year. It was in May. This year we're moving it to September to hopefully add for better weather. It was a great event last year. They only had about 5 weeks to plan it, but they did a wonderful job of putting it together. The team that is working on this event is so passionate about it. And I really think it's going to be a great event for Fremont. We're asking for the closure of Main Street to do the parade like was done last year. And then also the use of John C. Fremont Park for the afternoon for activities and booths for vendors. There will also be, it does say in there, possibly an evening event. That's just kind of an awareness. It will be a event kind of like with John C. Fremont Days, where a specific vendor will have that, will put that together and they will bring that in front of you. I just put that in there because it's probably something that we're going to support, but it won't be that part won't be our event. And I have had a meeting with Mayor and Chief Elliott about the security and different things that we need to do this year. We didn't have any problems last year, but just to make sure, we think it's going to be larger this year since we have more time to plan. So to make sure that we have everything in row.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Councilman Yerger?
I don't have one for the applicant. I have one for legal. Do we require any kind of an insurance thing like we do on any other use of city property to be on record?
It's not required for this.
Okay, thanks.
We do have insurance though. It is in our policy. We've added the Hispanic Festival to Main Street's policy.
Councilman Ellis?
Question for legal, that insurance policy is not needed for this event.
It's recommended, but not, there's.
So where does the, what requires it, and what doesn't require it? They're closing the street to have a park. They're using the city park.
Yep.
They don't need. I mean, in the past, we've always had to have, and I'm looking at an event that we have to have if we're going to use the city park.
I would always advise requiring them to do it, but there's nothing specifically that.
There's nothing in our code that requires.
Not
it.
for this type of event.
One last question. I do know that the police department was looking at a new procedure for any nonprofits that we're looking. Is that part of this? That this proposal is just different than what we've seen in the past. And so I was just curious: is this the new procedure, or is we still getting that put together?
Jody, you want to speak to that?
Sure. Jody Sanders, interim city administrator. Tyler and I and Chief and some other department heads are working on a new process. But the idea from Main Street was that they wanted to get the permission so they could really start going on this. So we didn't want to slow them down from that. You know, this, as I explained to Melissa, this really is an opportunity for Fremont, you know, our second great big festival like this. We really need to, I think we need to look at having kind of a streamlined process so we just check the boxes. And that's what we're going to work on. But we wanted to get this in front of you early enough so they could make their arrangements.
No, I agree. We definitely need to streamline that. I've been through the process many times and it's just kind of overwhelming. So I look forward to the new process. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you. Any comments from the public? Okay, any additional comments from council? There's no other comments. I'd take a motion to approve resolution 2022-073. Councilman Gibson.
I will make that motion to approve resolution 2022-073.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
All right, moving on to item 26, ordinance 5615, amending chapter 5, article 4 of the Fremont Municipal Code, sections 5-406, parking, business district, hours prohibited, and 5-421, parking, public parking lots. This would be for first reading. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Jody Sanders, interim city administrator. The advent of the 505 building, the redevelopment that we've all been looking for and hoping for, has finally come close to fruition, and it brought with it the question of where shall the residents park? Because currently, as you can see, our ordinances state that there's no parking between the hours of either 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning till 6 a.m. And, you know, we met with the developer, and I visited with the city of Norfolk in terms of their downtown district about how we might approach this, because the thing we have to remember is this is the first brush with this. There will be others coming. And so, you know, the notion of restricting just, you know, for residents of a particular building seemed to be, Norfolk tried it and found it to be very tedious and very hard to enforce, because you have people not knowing any better parking in those areas. So the discussion among city staff was to follow Norfolk's lead, because eventually they went to kind of a first come, first served basis. But we also didn't want to lift that restriction all across town. So the idea was that we would make the cabbage parking garage, both levels, available to those residents and others that would be parking in Fremont overnight, as well as the parking lot that's on the northeast corner of 5th and Park. And the ordinance that you see in front of you makes the changes to chapter 5 of the municipal code to allow for that.
Any questions? Councilman Ellis?
Yeah, the parking definitely affects me a lot, and I'm just curious. I like the direction we're going. But there is some concern here, at least on my part, as far as designated parking areas, because we've got apartments scattered all throughout the downtown area. So now we're saying if you're in one of the apartments, 3 blocks away, you can't park in the parking lot right next to your building. You have to go to one of these designated parking lots. Is that the way I'm reading this?
As it stands now, where are these folks parking I guess is the question. I think a lot of them might have some access to off-street parking. I don't know.
No, I think they're parking downtown. I mean, it's not legal. So I'm glad we're addressing this.
Mm-hmm.
I just wondered why we just have certain parking lots, because we have apartments scattered all throughout downtown. Now, if we're going to say you can only park in these parking lots, that definitely advantages the 505 and my building. But if you're in a apartment 3 blocks away, you now have to park 3 blocks away, even though there's another parking lot much closer to your building that you live in. So that's my concern here. Is I love the idea of moving forward, but the restrictions that we're putting it on just certain parking. What was the thinking there, I guess?
From my perspective, and I'm speaking only from mine,
Sure.
My concern was how many activities we have for the Ilgenfritz parking lot. Like the John C. Fremont Days, the Hispanic Festival, I think, is looking at perhaps doing something in that parking lot. So you tell people they can park there, but oh wait, we're having an event there. that's, from my perspective, that was why I wanted to limit it a little bit so that we would have that flexibility for people.
Okay,
Um,
so are we gonna be enforcing the 2-hour parking then after certain hours of the day? I mean, right now there's signs up all the time and we get people asking, is that 2-hour enforced? And it hasn't been. So I'm concerned about if we open this up to general public and make all the parking or just the parking spots downtown available, the 2 that you mentioned. That's not stopping somebody from bringing in their RV or whatever and parking it there. And especially if we're not enforcing the 2-hour limit, what's stopping somebody from saying, well, I want to park here overnight and then I can park here the whole day because I'm not going to get a ticket, and then I can park here the overnight. I think there's some, again, I really like the direction. We need a solution, but I think there's got to be some other give and take here, I think. So
I think you bring up good points. I think we kind of talked about this in length with not only the 505 building, as well as just with, when we're looking at parking downtown, we're having a lot more traffic downtown, which is a good thing, right? I mean, we want to bring the people to the downtown. Well, if we're doing that, well, now we have more of a parking issue than we've ever had. And so it's challenging because yes, we have had folks living downtown that are probably parking down there, but theoretically, we haven't been enforcing it. Chief Elliott doesn't have the resources to, it's a tough ask to be doing that essentially. So we're essentially, I don't think this is, with this ordinance, this is a one size fits all for this whole downtown. I think there's going to be a lot more studying we're going to have to do. There's going to be more planning within the city to how we're going to address parking downtown. But theoretically right now, we need something for the 505 building to assure them that they're in basically compliance, because they have now 28 one-bedroom apartments, which, it's a lot of housing. So I think that was really the intention and why we did try to reach out to Norfolk and try to understand how they approached it and what they learned, so we kind of don't make the same mistakes again. And it sounded like they tried a lot of different approaches and then just kind of threw their hands up and said, okay, it's open, and so I think with this ordinance, the goal was just to address the 505's parking dilemma. Councilman Legband.
Yeah, I want to thank you for going through Norfolk and seeing what they've done so we don't make the same mistakes. And so that was a great idea. And I think this is a great start. And I hope we keep getting more and more apartments, more and more building and growth downtown. So we might have to look at more parking, but right now I think this is a great start.
Councilman Yerger.
I agree. I think it's a start, and I agree with many of the comments that Councilman Ellis had. Mine are probably a little more concerning perhaps than he even raised, because I am firmly believe that if we want to improve downtown, we need downtown living, and that means they need parking areas. But to think that we're only going to allow them to park in parking lots rather than on the street is an issue, I think, that we need to address. For example, there are plenty of other facilities that we know are in the process of adding apartments besides 505. I'm particularly concerned that we would be writing code specific for 505. I don't think that's what our municipal code is about. Our municipal code should be about what we're doing and what's best for the city and the city as a whole. And so I bring these up. There is an old telephone building. I think it's owned by the Murrays. It's been under development, I think with Oscar Durand or whatever, on Park Street. They're across the street from the parking lot, essentially Innsbro, and that's not listed here. So where will those people park? Mr. Marvin has been here repeatedly saying, I can't park on the street. Well, there's a parking lot across from the police station at Military and Park that it's not right in front of his place, but it's close. Or if we were expanding this rule to say, no, you can park on the city streets in front of your authorized apartment living upstairs in front of any business that we have that expands, you can park in the city streets, but these are the restrictions. Then we would be accommodating other businesses besides 505. We'd be incorporating all these others, and we'd be attempting to accommodate any of those inhabitants that would appear above all of these other buildings downtown, which we're going to encourage, I assume. We want these other buildings to consider putting apartments above them as well, but we're making no provision for them. And I realize you might say, well, this is the first step. Okay, and it is, but I don't think that city code really should be calling out specific parking lots. In my mind, this should be more generic than that, that says you can park in the public streets within these hours, and you can park in the public parking lots within these hours. But I am concerned about opening it up to anything more than those that are the apartment dwellers and saying, oh no, it's good for anybody in the city, cars, trucks, heavy trucks, semis, anybody that wants to park in our city parking lots. It's fair game because we just alleviated the code that says you can't do it. So I am concerned about that. And so I just think this needs a little attention yet, obviously. I don't think that 5406, which I read as a street code, not a parking lot code. And legal, you can tell me if I'm misinterpreting that, but that code starts out talking about parked on or left on the streets. So I don't know why we're making an exception for parking lots in the street code. It looks like it really applies to 5421, obviously, but I don't see how it would apply to streets unless we were doing streets. I would ask that, we need to think about whether or not a way of dealing with this, and I don't think it follows suit with Norfolk specifically, but if we were to be using, for example, a downtown residential dweller parking sticker or a hanger that goes on your mirror like a disabled police could drive by and you're parked on the street, but you have a permit that's in essence granted by your lease holder. And when you move out as a tenant, you take it back. And we end up with a potential database for being able to call somebody if they have their vehicle on the street or in a parking lot and it needs moved. We have information. And I would encourage us to explore those concepts as a part of this, because I think it is equally important that we try to accommodate 505, but we need to be equal accommodating to all of these other places that are already renovating downtown living as well, and those that will in the future. And I don't think this code gets us where we need to go in that regard. And certainly we need to think about what opening this up to the overall public means with regards to potential abuse.
Councilman Legman.
Yeah, I'd just like to say this is first reading, so some of these things can be hashed out. Then we need to figure out where we're going to get these stickers, who's going to be in charge of it, and all these other things. So again, this is first reading. All these things can be discussed in the next two readings. So I appreciate everything, all the comments everyone's making.
Okay. Any comments from the public?
Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street. I would hesitate on not making this a generic codification. It shouldn't be specific to a structure in itself. And I would agree with some of the comments made, but parking downtown is an issue. But if you want to see your downtown area develop, you have to allow for the residential to park. It's also a safety issue. Why would you require somebody to go 3 or 4 blocks out of the way to park a car when they're on a night shift or coming home late at night from being out and about town, only to have them walk through the downtown area to get to their apartment that they live in? The BID has been working to try to bring population downtown. You got the 505 who's down there. You got the brewery down there. You got other businesses that have worked hard to beautify their businesses, et cetera. And you need the residential to put some life into that downtown district. Part of that's going to be parking. This should not be a code, whether it's first read or not, that allows for specific codification for a business. It should be generic in nature. And I don't know how the permitting process would work, but Councilman Yerger had mentioned that it would be least controlled, and that's probably the best bet to do it. You have 12 apartments, they get 12 window hangers or stickers, however. But somehow you have to adapt and allow for residential living in the downtown. That is going to be key to breathing new life into your downtown districts. Omaha and Lincoln have both proven that. Norfolk has seen some renewal in their downtown areas. Kearney as well, Hastings. Every community that has embraced downtown residential living, it has enhanced the businesses downtown, brought a new flavor to it. And Fremont isn't necessarily behind the bandwagon because you've got some vital ingredients here. You got thriving businesses. You got the 505 putting in 28 apartments. But you also have the old hotel that's burnt out. I know it's just an albatross in your downtown area. But if that were to be purchased and revamped, where are the people going to park? You have some older residents that own these buildings downtown and they may want to live there. Where are you asking them to park? I'm just saying there has to be a better solution. I don't agree with just passing this through on the first read, simply because history has shown you pass it through on the first read. Well, you agreed with it the first time. It's really hard to amend. Thank you.
Tom Cody, 2625 County Road 11 here in Fremont, also chairman of the BID. And our projects committee is working on downtown parking, and we definitely welcome apartment dwellers downtown. It does create some problems. We've had a lot of conversation about it. I'm glad that you guys are addressing it. I think that one thing we should consider is snow removal is going to be an issue if you let people park on the streets. We have to get the streets cleaned. Probably be better if they were in a parking lot someplace. So I don't have any real suggestions for you at this point, but we are working on it with as a BID.
Ryan Durant, 505 North Main Street developer. And so I just want to kind of touch base. Shannon here, who's with our property manager group, actually brought this up. A resident said that they knew the city ordinance and we couldn't park overnight. And I said, yeah, that's kind of a problem. I guess it's 40 years old. So it's been around longer than I have almost. So anyway, here's the thing. We're open to whatever. We're not tied to any one parking lot. If we need to open this up to the whole, I think in our conversations we didn't want to open this up for the whole city. So we didn't want to open up your parks down the street to overnight parking, because then y'all know what happens when you have overnight parking in a park, not good things. So, if we want to keep the boundaries in the downtown area, that's fine. Obviously, we're excited if there's other folks living downtown. Again, as you've heard, that's very vital for a downtown. So we're happy to be part of that, and know there will be many, many others after us. So we're just kind of, getting this figured out with you guys, and we're open to conversation.
Any other comments from the public? Okay. Comments from council. Councilman Yerger.
Well, so I'm glad to hear, I didn't hear from the 505 people as to the timeline that you all might specifically be on with regards to the completion of your project. So that's of some issue for me, because I certainly want to be sensitive to that. You're going to be a hallmark for downtown. And so we talked about this, I think, in the earliest design for the 505, and there was some discussion about having even leased parking spaces, I think, on the roof of the parking garage. And now we're taking a different approach. So I'm sensitive this has been an issue from day one, and certainly something that we need to resolve with respect to your specific property, but for all of these others as well. And I would resurrect and point out to the council again, we have parking lots on 6th and D. We have parking lots at 6th and H. We have Military and Park as parking lots. We have those that are named. for the covered parking area, the area behind on Fifth Street, excuse me, yeah, Fifth and Park. We have a lot further south than the covered parking. So we have several parking lots. They're all downtown. And I think we probably need to affect coverage that allows any of those buildings in there that have residences, same privileges that we would be trying to afford 505. And I do think that for those that are actually, going to be developed on Main Street, we need to think about how we accommodate the street parking as well. So, and unless there's an absolute pressing thing that says that we have to get this done right away, I would ask that we continue this item to the June 1st meeting. And here's why. For the very reasons that I just stated, because the BID has said that they're looking into this and they only meet periodically. And I think it's important that we get input from the Downtown Business Improvement District and those that have businesses that might be putting apartment dwelling up above that might have a heavy weigh in on whether we want to put this in the street as well as on parking lots. And we need some advice and counsel. And so forming some sort of a committee to deal with that input from the BID, from other businesses to look at these other parking lots. I think this was a great start. But if we're not on a schedule that commands that we have to have this done by date certain, then we ought to research this a little more significantly for the issues that have been raised and discussed tonight and see if we can't do something that's a little more comprehensive than just a couple of parking lots because it's 505. And so I'll make a motion to continue this item to June 1st to give us the adequate opportunity to do that investigation and come back with something that's more succinct to put before council.
Just wanted to clear something up, Councilman Yerger. It does allow the police department to designate other parking areas. It's not just limited to 2. But. And I think that 2-hour parking rule was designated by a resolution. So at some point, it's not necessarily in code, but it was designated by a resolution probably a while ago.
Councilman Jensen,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilman Legband.
Yeah, my comment is that is putting it off to June starting to push the issue or not?
Yeah, public comment has been over, but
Okay, then I'll ask you, is it starting to push the issue or not? I'll ask staff.
We were approached by Mr. Durant, I believe in March, because they are trying to pre-lease their building so that when they open, they will have tenants on the first day. I guess the thing that concerns me is that many of the things that are being discussed were discussed in the meetings that we had with Chief Elliott and the street department. I spoke with Mark Villadal. And snow removal is a major issue. And by limiting it to just a few parking lots, that leaves us the opportunity to clear all the rest.
Okay, again, I just want to say this can be, I think it should be our first reading. And that still gives everyone a chance to look it over, hash things out. There are still some changes that can be made, but I think we need to move forward with first reading.
Councilman Ellis.
I love the idea. We've got to do something. I'm not sure. I think I've seen in their advertisements that they're renting in June, summertime. So I'm assuming June, July, August timeframe. I'm just fearful that going forward, when we need changes here, because as it sits right now, we could become an RV park. People could park their RVs in our parking lots in downtown, and they could get away with it. So I think that we just need some more structure here. I like the idea of getting more apartment owners involved in the discussion. And so I don't know where we go with that. I think there probably needs to be a bigger discussion that takes place, because there are some players downtown that have apartments that we are essentially, by doing this, disqualifying or playing favorites, I guess. And I don't want to come across that way, because we've got it. So there's a motion to continue. I'm not sure if I want to continue it or not, but I do know that this reading as it sits needs a lot of help. So I don't know if we, if we can put together another outside meeting or whatever to get more input and maybe come up with the second reading with a lot of amendments. I think I'd be more apt to do that.
And Councilman Ellis, I can say that we can define vehicle in these so that it's not other trailers or RVs. Section 5-418 kind of encompasses some of those types of definitions, so we could certainly do that.
Before I get to the motion to continue, I just, I don't think it's in any way negative to have first reading. I think what we could do is, I hate to put more on the BID, but this is the Business Improvement District for downtown. It's maybe the BID at their next meeting can, take this up, have discussion, maybe bring back any maybe further recommendations that they see fit to this board, and then we can either consider them or not. But that's why the board is there. I don't think we need another committee to do that, but I don't see the harm in holding first reading, but that's up to the council at this point. And there's a motion to continue. So is there a second?
And I'd like to speak to that even before I get a second. I'm disappointed that there's a motion of privilege on the floor and we continue discussion and debate, which is not allowed under Robert's rules. And so that's problematic, I guess, from my perspective as procedurally as to how we proceed. I suggested June 1st as the motion to continue. It would be fine if we did this at a special meeting of council where we could hammer this out. I am in full agreement that this needs to happen and it needs to happen as quickly as possible with proper input. But I agree with Councilman Ellis. The language that's in this proposal is not adequate for what we want to do. And it's really aimed at a specific business, and that's not correct. We need to be more encompassing and take into all of these parking concerns that we've had over the course of many months in front of this council. And so if not to June 1st, then I'd be happy to modify my motion to continue to a special meeting to be designated by the mayor. But we need to address this more precisely than to say, we'll get it on second reading or we'll get it on third reading. We need much more input and ideas in trying to develop this fully and to get it done in a timely manner. And I think if we do that, we can still get it done for 505 in the time frame that they would like. And we can be dealing with all these other potential living residential tenants downtown as well, some of which would need to park in the street, not just in the parking lot. And we're giving them no relief. So I encourage the council to continue this. I'll say, I won't make it June 1st. I want to continue this to at least a special meeting where we can hammer some of these details out and get a better first reading. You can always waive off third reading if we're in a rush, but we need a better document than the one that's before us tonight. So make a motion to continue this to a special meeting to be selected by the mayor.
Okay. I recognize the motion to continue. Is there a second? Councilman Ellis.
I'm going to second that.
Okay, cast your votes.
Motion fails 3-5.
Okay, take a motion to introduce and hold first reading. Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to introduce and hold first reading of ordinance 5615.
Councilman Legman.
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-1, Mayor.
Okay, when I have first reading,
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending chapter 5, article 4 of the Fremont Municipal Code, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect on first reading.
all right, next, we would have from the agenda update, motion to go into executive session. And so Tyler ran out and grabbed some forms for us.
Okay, Councilman Yerger.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing contract negotiations and for the further reason that executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest.
Okay, Councilman Gibson. Okay, a motion has been made and seconded to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing contract negotiations and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Is there any discussion? Councilman Legband.
Yes, I don't see any need to go in executive session when HR has done their job and they work their tails off to get this contract done. And now we're going to come in and try and change it, change wording or change things. I don't understand it. I didn't care about moving these back really, but I do not see any reason to go into executive session.
Councilman Yerger.
To explain somewhat why I think this is necessary, and I urge the council members to consider the fact that if council has questions on some of these things, whether they're contract or ordinance specific, we're oftentimes admonished, and we will be admonished tonight, not to discuss these in public. So the only way that we have an opportunity is to go into executive session to discuss these things. Personally, I have some questions. I would hope that you would want to hear what they are. They may or may not have a bearing on how you vote. Certainly not intending to get in the way of the contract, but there's some understanding here that I don't have from reading the material. I would hope you would want to at least understand the concerns and see whether or not you share in those or not. And that's the purpose of having this discussion. Also, largely, I don't know about you, but in light of the contract and the items that will follow, there may be an opportunity to explain to the general public what we're doing tonight. And I've asked legal today whether or not in executive session, they would be able to help us with what we might say relative to what we're looking at with regards to the terms and conditions and the cost of what we're doing. That's the reason to go to executive session, to try to make sure we understand exactly what we're doing and how we can communicate it to the public. And I would hope that every council member in the front of the room would be interested in having that information at their fingertips. So that's why I asked for an executive session.
Councilman Legband.
Again, I trust our staff. Everything they've done, they've worked their tails off. I trust the staff. So I still see no need to go in executive session and question the staff or what they're doing. I see no need for it.
Councilman Ellis.
I trust the staff myself, but as we all know, and we've been told, we're not discussing this in public. And so questions are rising, and I don't see any problem at all. The courtesy of another councilman to give another councilman the ability to get some answers made. We're not trying to change anything. We're just trying to get answers because we are the ones that are going to be talking to people in the public. They're going to be asking us, and I want to make sure I say the right thing according to attorneys. So just common courtesy for the council to go in to get things straight, what we can say, what we can't say, and discuss this.
Councilman Jensen.
I would just say this is not the only opportunity people have had to ask questions. We've had this stuff since last Wednesday. Questions could have been asked that don't need to be asked.
Councilwoman Ganem.
We're not changing contracts. The contract's done and they've done a great job with it. And both sides certainly have agreed. But if there are questions on salary schedules as to why things are the way they are, maybe I could learn from that too.
Okay, pending motion is to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing contract negotiations and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Cast your vote.
Motion carries 5-3, Mayor.
Okay. Motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing contract negotiations and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest has been approved. Discussion will be limited to contract negotiations. No official actions or votes will be taken during executive session. We'll now go back to the back conference room. Council, myself, legal, interim city administrator, Jeff Shanahan.
I'm kind of feeling like an island.
All right. Take a motion to come out of executive session. Councilman Jensen.
Make the motion to come out of executive session.
Okay, Councilman Yerger.
Second.
Okay. Ready. Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, item 20, resolution 2022-068, approving the 2021 through 2025 collective bargaining agreement between the city of Fremont and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 1536, as negotiated by management. Any report from staff?
There we go. Jennifer McDuffie, Director of Human Resources. So this is the collective bargaining agreement for the IBEW contract. We did wrap up negotiations with the union. Their membership approved it, I believe it was a week ago. And so we're asking for your approval tonight so I can take a deep breath tomorrow morning. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Councilman Jensen.
Any idea what the vote of the union public, of the union members was?
I've just heard through the grapevine and it was big, yeah. I've heard through the grapevine, but I haven't heard officially, so, but yeah. Sounds like the majority of the membership approved it.
Thank you. Take a motion in regards to this item. Councilman Gibson.
I will make that motion.
Okay, Councilman Sukram,
I will second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 21, ordinance 5613 to approve utility salary ordinance, and then request to suspend rules and move to final reading.
Jennifer McDuffie, Human Resources Director. This is the first salary ordinance that relates to the IBEW contract that you just approved. This is for the 3% cost of living increases that would be retroactive back to October 1st. It also includes, if you remember back for October 1st, we made a conservative recommendation to adjust the non-union pay grades by 2.5%. The salary ordinance would add another 0.5% to that for non-union, so that it is a 3% cost of living increase across the board. I am happy to take any questions.
Questions for staff? Take a motion to introduce and hold first reading. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make the motion to have the first reading of 5613.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll second that.
Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We'll have first reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees, repealing ordinance number 5602, and other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing an effective date on first reading.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the request to suspend the rules and move ordinance 5613 to the third and final reading.
Councilman Legban.
I will second that.
Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, we'll have final reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees, repealing ordinance number 5602 and all other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing an effective date on final reading.
Okay, cast your final vote.
The ordinance is approved 8-0, Mayor.
Now ordinance 5614 to approve utility salary ordinance, can consider request to suspend rules and move to final reading.
Jennifer McDuffie, Human Resources Director. This is a second ordinance that is part of the collective bargaining agreement. This ordinance would make the comparability adjustments for the bargaining unit. These would not be retroactive. These would go into effect after the ordinance is effective. Also, you will notice there are some non-union adjustments as well. There were a few classifications where, due to the increases to the positions that these supervisory positions supervise, that we needed to make some adjustments to the supervisory level positions to ensure that we maintained a gap between those positions. Also, there is the addition of an assistant director of electrical engineering position. And you will notice that I changed the job title on the HR jobs. Since I'm filling them, I changed them to terms that other HR professionals will recognize more readily. That might help me out with some recruitment there. So I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, questions for Jennifer? Okay. Take a motion to introduce and hold first reading. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion and introduce and hold first reading of 5614.
Councilman Legban,
And I will second that.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, we'll now have first reading.
Ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees, repealing ordinance number 5613 and all other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing an effective date. First reading.
Councilman Legban,
Yes, I would request to suspend the rules and move to final reading.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Councilmember Ganem, I didn't record your vote. Thank you. Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Now have final reading.
Ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees, repealing ordinance number 5613 and all other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing an effective date on final reading.
Cast your final vote.
Ordinance is approved 8-0, Mayor.
Take a motion to adjourn. Councilman Gibson.
So moved.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.